Got everybody hungry. Okay, so today's portion is Korach, and it's 860 in H Chaim.
Right along.
All right, so this is Korach's rebellion, or we used to call it Baldy's rebellion. And I think it raises some really foundational constitutional questions, which, by the way, Rabbinic Judaism dealt with and we're still dealing with today. So whatever you think of the outcome of this, and I'm not terribly happy with the outcome, but nonetheless,
all that death and destruction.
well, I
and
thought it was
plagues.
a bit harsh, you know.
Yeah, well, I wonder about that. Were they really swallowed up alive? And the reason I say it is, weren't there descendants of Korach left over that we hear about later?
Yes.
The sons didn't join him. So supposedly, if you swallowed up the entire family, they obviously either they didn't die or they didn't swallow them all.
Or they crawled out, or they were,
Or
they were in the bathroom, you know.
or something.
Right.
You know, they buried everybody in they all threw them into a pit.
Yeah, one or two of them survived. If God threw you into a pit to kill you, you didn't crawl back out. You died. As the sons didn't join Korah.
Well, somebody.
It says and his whole family.
Yeah. Well,
So I'm looking for an explanation as
yeah,
usual.
I don't have one. You know what this reminds me of? There's a Simpsons episode. This has nothing to do with Torah, but a Simpsons episode where they're in church and he keeps falling asleep. And he finally says, you know, if I fall asleep, the world's not going to end. So he falls asleep and, you know, what's his name? Future Lovejoy or something?
I don't know.
Joy Kill is going on and on about so-and-so begot so-and-so begot so-and-so, right? He falls asleep and he wakes up and the world has ended. And there's all these flaming pits with people falling in and he walks out and says, barbecue. Anyway. So I guess, does somebody want to start reading? We'll start at 16, 1.
Issachar, son of Kohath, son of Levi, he took himself along with Abiram, son of Eliab, and On, son of Pelah, descendants of Reuben, to rise up against Moses, together with 250 Israelites, chieftains of the community, chosen in the assembly, men of repute.
All right, let's just stop right there and just,
About On, don't they usually, is this the same On?
like,
Is an On involved with,
there's an Onan, talking about Judah
yeah.
back in the day. Yeah, there's an Onan. Yeah. On. No, they usually don't. This is also an Egyptian name, which may or may not mean anything, because early on, there are a lot of Egyptian names of people coming out of Egypt.
Yeah, especially among Levi.
Especially among Levi, you're right. So, which has led to all sorts of interesting hypotheses about maybe it was only that tribe that came out and they sort of gathered everybody into their story. I don't know. But anyway, so let's get the actors on this. So who's rebelling against Moses?
I think they were all rebelling against Moses, but only Korah was rebelling against Aaron.
Well, it says they combined against Moses and Aaron.
The Reubenites, Dathan and Aviram.
All right, so there's
Were they
Abiram.
both from Reuben?
Yes. So that, didn't you listening, right? You can't do a few things at one time?
I need repetition for it to sink in.
Okay. So Dathan and Abiram, sons of Eliab, and On, son of Pelah, descendants of Reuben.
They wanted the political.
Right.
Moses had the political.
Okay, so first of all, what's the want to say, so why the tribe of Reuben?
Firstborn.
Reuben's so, anyway, so Reuben should be the dominant tribe, right? Right, I mean, the oldest son. So if this is rebellion, first of all, it's the oldest tribe, presumably the more prestigious tribe. I don't know, so Reuben. This is tribal politics, right? It's go to the Middle East, you know, it's the same way. But who else?
Moshe's cousin, Torah.
So there's Levi.
Korach wanted the religious power. He wanted to
Well, we'll get there.
take Aaron's place.
Okay, but what tribe's he from?
Levi.
He's Levi. So we've got the Levi tribe. We've got the Reuben tribe. And who else?
Nobody else.
There's the
Do I need to repeat this again?
the
And the 250 men of renown. So they're probably, it says they're elected, which I find is, these must be the judges or the magistrates or I don't know, something like that, right? Because it says chieftains of the community.
You know,
Let's see
I
it.
find it very interesting that every one of these stories, there's chieftains of the community and they all die. And there's still chieftains of the community left over for the next time.
Let me try, right, right. So just to get the parameters of the thing, they're members of the tribe of Levi, they're members of the, which is, by the way, a sacred tribe, right? There's a sacred tribe, right? The tribe of Reuben, which is a, if I can say so, secular tribe, right? And you have the elected assembly, right? This is, huh? Well, the other 5,700 and, yeah, whatever, 5,750,000, whatever it is. But all the leadership, the major tribe and the Levites and the elected assembly, the chieftains. I mean, this isn't a couple people spouting off. This is pretty massive. Just to have that in mind, right?
It seems like in a lot of these instances, there's a lot of followers.
Right,
I mean, like even the golden calf, they're all the followers.
right.
Here, it's all the followers. I mean, they were just.
If your tribal leader or clan leader goes up and says, we're fighting against, you know, Yossi over there, what are you gonna do? Right?
I mean, it's just like a general rebellion. People are so unhappy and depressed because they know they're not gonna make it to the promised land. They've already been told that their carcasses are gonna drop in the desert. Right?
Right. We've already been through that part.
Right, so that is the sort of the motive for the rebellion. It's an underlying force.
But they've also reached the glass ceiling. They've reached the pinnacle of their power in the system. Now they want to break the system to get more power.
Okay, so let's follow that line of thought for a second. So they've reached, the Levites are never going to be more than Levites, right? The Reubenites are never going to be more than Reubenites. As a matter of fact, they sort of disappear as a tribe a little bit in Judah in the south. The 250 magistrates are chosen of the assembly, whatever they are. I mean, they're never going to be Levites. They're never going to be priests, right? So everybody's where they're at. Why is that bad? I mean, what's really going on here? And I think dissatisfaction with the way the Exodus has gone so far is certainly an element, right? They've been griping since like day one, right? And at one point, was it last week, 2 weeks ago, when Moses goes to God and says, all right, God, I've had it, you know, I'm stepping down unless you straighten this thing out, I'm not doing this anymore, right? So,
Hey, isn't this happening in Russia right now, like this moment?
yes, I was wondering whether to bring that up or not, yeah. Well,
It's just uncanny how why don't you just read the Bible? You'll find the history of the world. You'll know you can anticipate what's gonna happen.
History repeats itself.
Well, I'm thinking of the appointed men of the assembly and the elected men, and I'm thinking Israel, Supreme Court versus the Knesset,
Yeah,
right? I mean, I don't think we've solved this.
Can you
No,
go
no.
back to the Hebrew for a second? I mean, it says chosen in English.
Uh-huh.
You're saying elected. What does the Hebrew say?
Hamishimu Me'taim, where's the word? Nisi'e Eda, Kora'e Moed, Anshe Shem.
Nothing.
Those raised up in the community, Nisi'e Eda? Nisi'e Eda, those raised up? Okay. Kora'e Moed, all for an occasion?
Moed
no,
is,
Moed is simcha, is moadim לשמחה.
So
It's-
Kora'e Moed.
Kore Moed, so maybe the ones who are chanting during the holidays from the Torah or something.
Well, no, that's too early for that. Kora'e Moed. Oh, you're thinking of called to the Torah on the Moed. Yeah, no, I think.
What is that thing? This can be rendered with the ancient Greek translation called to. Chieftains or heads of clans, and by virtue of that office were called to the.
See, the Moed is also you have the Ohel Moed, right? The end of this, what, assembly or something like that. So that's where I think they get the chosen in the assembly, Kora'e Moed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But then on that,
Anyway, and then Anshe Shem, so people of repute. Yeah, okay.
they have a name.
So
Which would
those
make a
raised up
difference.
by the community called to the assembly and men of repute. Right.
Okay.
So these are I mean, if these are this quote unquote elected representatives of the community and they're rebelling against Moses, I mean, this is serious.
Mhm.
And they've got the backing of Reuben and they've got the backing of Levi.
But nobody else. Well, we don't know.
Who
We
else
don't-
is important?
We
Well,
don't know where these people, we still don't know what tribes these 250 people come
they've
from.
got to be from all the other ones. I'm thinking. I think this is a general like insurrection, right?
So when you have this kind of thing happening, usually after something's gone badly, which we were just discussing, people are rationalizing themselves. He's not doing such a good job. It's his fault. It's not our fault. If he'd done a better job, the spies would have given a better report, right? Or he would have anticipated a bad report, or he would have this, he would have that. So it's a lot of rationalizing.
Or you would have stopped them when they gave the report before they gave their opinion.
Yeah, so,
Closed door kind of thing, right?
you could almost imagine this discussion to gear up to actually have the temerity to do what they're gonna do.
Right. On the other hand, where's God in all of this?
He's watching it.
He seemed zooming.
Where's that flood again? So, I mean, if you're blaming Moses and then Moses and then Moses and then Moses, like, and Moses himself is saying, look, I'm just doing what I'm told, right? So,
Korah is the first cousin.
kind of, yeah.
Something, right? I mean, so he feels that he's been deprived of his status he deserves.
Right. Well, I mean, I think they go on and say, they're kind of bumper sticker thing.
But but verse 3 kind of sums it up. We read verse 3. They combined against Moses and Aaron and said to them, "You have gone too far, for all the community are holy, all of them, and the Lord is in their midst. Why then do you raise yourselves above the Lord's congregation?"
Okay, now that's a serious charge.
Right.
And I guess I want to raise the question, isn't that correct? The people of Israel, right, the Israel being born right in the wilderness, the people are all holy. We're told that again and again, where
Actually, and I've listened to a couple of podcasts this week about this. It says here that we are all holy.
yeah,
Where it says that God says they're going to be holy, it says you're going to be holy. You're not there yet. You haven't achieved it.
Ah, right,
So Korach is saying, we've already gotten there.
right.
Well, no, they haven't.
Well, maybe they have.
Well, you know, we're supposed to be,
No, I understand.
They have not gotten there yet.
Even if they
If they
have.
had already gotten there, there would be nothing left to do.
Well, they still have to
We would
get,
have no reason to go on. We have to keep striving to be holy.
yeah, but the guy, they've always.
That's what these podcasts
No, I
are saying.
understand.
Even if you accept that, there's still a problem with the second half of this, which is they didn't, Moses and Aaron didn't raise themselves above the Lord's congregation. God
They were-
did.
Yeah, they
Right.
were chosen by God.
Right. But there's,
Terribly happy about it, right?
He says over and over again.
still a hierarchy.
Most humble man.
There's still a hierarchy there. In other words, they're saying everyone, since everyone's holy, the implication is we don't need a leader. Everyone, it's a, you know, everyone is a,
how are they gonna?
right, yeah, exactly. They're, but you need a leader. Regardless of whether we're a kingdom of priests and a holy people, right? You still need a leader.
Well,
Leadership can be a leader what works. People don't know.
but I think it's a bigger problem than that. You were gonna ask a question.
I'm just gonna say, how are they going to accomplish anything if there's no one leading it?
That's
So there's a very practical reason for having a leadership, right?
Someone, if it's not Moses, it's someone gonna be someone else.
Wanted to be Korach, that's the point.
Yeah, all right, we're gonna dethrone Moses or whatever you do to Moses. Then what?
Somebody else takes over.
Korach becomes the next.
Torah says everyone is holy and the implication is no leader, but in reality, he wants to be the leader. So this is where he's disingenuous.
Right,
Well, I would say that, you know, if the priesthood went through Aaron and Aaron's son would be next in line, you would think that after Moshe would be Moshe's sons. It still wouldn't be Korach.
right, right. But it would still be the tribe of Levi.
Right. Okay, so anyway, what I wanted to say before was that
So this is an inter-Levite fight.
Is this after the episode of the 70 prophet? 70
Yes.
Okay, so
And the two guys are running around because they've been,
yeah, but the point is that ended. Their prophecy ended because they weren't the ones to continue. And Moshe continued. So that right there's proof why it should have been Moshe.
no, but unless Korach is saying, hey, you shut this off as if you're the only holy one here, but you're not the only holy one here. In other words, I think, he's accusing Moses of a power play. We're accusing Korach of a power play, and I'm not saying you're wrong. But I think he's turning around and saying, no, it's Moses. He keeps saying, you know, God just told me to do this. God just told me to do that. And Korach said, look, we're all holy. This is the tribe of Levi, right? It's not just all about you all the time. Right?
I mean, I did. As I said before, it's happening today. This is just one of the first stories we hear of.
Right.
But it probably would have happened between Jacob and Esau had they stayed in the same area. I mean, it's just that they.
Right.
But soon we're gonna see what the consequences are.
Right. Which is saying I'm not terribly happy about, but I wasn't consulted. Yeah, but, right. But I think it's important just to see what's going on here, because this is a really fundamental question. And by the way, what I find interesting, and this doesn't always happen, but the Haftarah picks up the discussion. Right?
That's not unusual.
I think the way this one does is, you're right.
I don't remember what this one is.
Oh, that's
Samuel.
Should we have should we have a king?
Yeah.
Right.
So it's almost a commentary on this. And what's the answer about should we have a king?
Well, Samuel says no, and God says, go ahead and appoint one.
Well,
Yeah,
but
but
people
God-
say yes. Samuel says no. God says, Oh, God,
Well,
again?
you know what? I'm just thinking about, it's kind of like the spies. God didn't want him to have the spies.
Hmm.
I mean, he relents and see what happens. Well, he relented with the king and see what happens.
See what happens.
In the meantime, there's all kinds of commandments in the Torah about what a king is allowed to do.
Right.
So
Maimonides has a whole like thing, right?
So why were all those commandments in the Torah if they didn't want to have a king?
Again.
I'm way off. I'm way off the subject,
No,
right?
no, I think you're right.
Can't say it's bad. You have to let a kid fall and hurt himself. Does it enough times?
You learn how not to fall.
And God forbid, don't do it, and there will always be someone who's going to challenge.
Right, anyway, right.
He made us.
Don't go down in that submarine. Well, I'm gonna try it anyway.
Don't take the submarine.
Right.
But isn't that the ongoing problem anyway? Because, it's like Santayana's famous aphorism. Study history are doomed to repeat it. It seems like apparently nobody studies it because we're always repeating it.
Right. But anyway, I think, but I think there is a fundamental question here. One is, all right, Moses, you got us out of Egypt, got us the 10 Commandments, you sentenced us to 38 more years in the wilderness. We need a leadership change versus this whole structure is wrong, right? And I mean, I'm thinking in terms of more contemporary Judaisms. Do we need a leadership? Should there be a king? Should Israel be a democracy? Should it be a Jewish state? What's the role of priests? And I'm talking about Kohanim, not the Catholic model. Should there be a chief rabbi? I think these questions have never really been answered, but I think they're being asked right here.
Well, I mean,
There is a question in it. Think about the Constitution.
Oh, yeah,
There's something that I don't-
right.
I mean, even,
You don't have, you need one.
See, the answers in the book of Judges, you end up with anarchy.
Yes.
You end up with no leadership. And you have chaos. You have total chaos,
actually, in Judges, you have one judge after another with periods in between.
right? But none of
Chaos.
Judges are local. Local.
Most of them.
But they're also them. The ones who we send to go lead the armies and all, they are not attractive people. We really don't want it.
Yeah, I'm thinking of
I'm thinking Samson specifically when you say that.
Yeah, but,
Samuel 1 and 2 comes after Judges. And there we get a king.
Right.
As a result of the chaos.
No, but you also read that Samuel acted as a judge before he appointed a king.
right.
Yeah.
And you do have that, it might even be in the Haftarah. I didn't read it in advance of this session, but I've read it before. I think it might be in this Haftarah, this whole idea that not having a king is from the perspective of the people is part of the problem. Our neighbors have kings and they run roughshod over us.
Right.
We need a king to run the army so we can ride roughshod over them.
The judges ran the army in those days.
Right. Well,
But you brought up whether we need a
Can I read-
leader.
yeah.
I'm sorry. Whether or not we need a leader, I'm saying even in the conservative movement in this country, we have the Committee on Law and Standards. We still, we have minority opinions and the local rabbi gets to choose which to follow.
right.
But then once he chooses, he's the boss here.
Here's the Mara Doctrine.
That's.
Or you choose
Yeah,
another
that's
rabbi. Right,
Right, exactly.
Moses is not a king, he's a prophet. You have a prophet and a priest.
Do we want to go down the road of asking what a king is? No, okay. I mean, I think that's also what's at stake. What does it mean to be a leader of this community? Do you run the assembly? Are you a dictator? Do you say, God told me? Do you run the major tribe and the major tribe?
He's not religious. He don't.
so sure. I'm not so sure.
Well, I mean,
Moses raises his hands and the Israelites win the battle.
Right,
Lowers his hands.
and they're in trouble, right?
That's a very religious kind of thing.
I would think so too. I think dividing, here's a king, here's a prophet, here's a priest is probably too neat
well,
a,
yeah,
a s- a slice, right? I mean, it's,
you have the three things, but I think, I hate this word, but they need to work in cahoots with each other or it doesn't work.
right.
Well, it's sort of like a separation of powers. I mean, one is a check on the other. It's a little bit of a check and balance.
That's what kind of what I meant by cahoots with each other.
Well, I can easily see an arrangement where Moses is saying, look, I'm the prophet, because I'm in direct contact with God. Korah and your group, you're the Levites. You're in charge of the temple. You're the priestly kind of
Right.
thing. And these men of the assembly, you're the secular everyday magistrates, right? So you've got the three powers. And this is, I think, even challenging that.
Yeah,
But what's supposed to come next? And that's where I'm saying I think the conversation gets carried on to Samuel. We'll have a secular king who's not a priest and who's not a prophet.
Right.
But who allows priests and prophets to do their thing under secular rulership.
and then the kings end up, destroying the unity.
Right. And then when you come back from the exile, they say no more king, right? We go to a theocracy, the priests ruling.
Right. So Solomon was the wisest of all men, and yet, the unity of the nation was undermined because what he did. Son.
So anyway, I just wanted to raise it just in these first couple, like 3 or 4 verses, 3 verses, I think. What's at stake here? This is not just Korah. I don't want to dismiss Korah entirely as just some kind of egoistical, dude who wants power. I think he's raising a very fundamental question at the very beginning, right? He's saying what Israel did not do, the state of Israel, which was a mistake, which is, let's wait till we're 75 years old in the middle of a political crisis and then, hey, let's write a constitution. You can't do it that way. Constitution should be at the basis. And I think that's what Korah is, in some sense, might be saying. Let's get this straightened out now, right? At sort of the beginning of the journey. So when we get to the land, we know what we're doing. And that gets shut down, and I'm not sure that's a good solution. But anyway, that's my.
You're interpolating something that's going on now, you mean, in Israel here.
In Israel, well, in Russia? Yeah,
I mean, it's also here.
it's also here. Yeah,
Well,
We have met the enemy and they is us.
Yeah, the enemy is us.
yeah. I mean, the House just censored Adam Schiff.
They did?
Yeah, they did.
Yes.
He said he would wear it as a badge of honor.
He did that.
Fight it our way.
Well,
They don't have the power to. They don't have the power to.
they- well, they- It's not saying they don't have the power.
I'm saying they don't have the power.
Yeah, but
That's
they,
final.
yes, Moses. Yeah, but I mean, they have Mark McCarthy by the,
It's not Mark.
Capones.
McCarthy.
Kevin McCarthy.
Mark McCarthy, so I'm getting confused.
Yeah, he's postponing it.
yeah,
He's not talking about it right now. He wants it, but he's pushing it off.
But I think
Poor guy.
poor guy, like, yeah.
Poor guy should have given up back in January when he couldn't get elected.
After vote 12 or something, he
Yeah.
says, okay. Anyway, so, well, we should go on, but I just wanted to make sure this is at least what I see is at stake here, and I think it's some pretty fundamental questions, which never fully get resolved in Judaism, by the way. If you read through Talmud, they ask about this all the time. Like who's in charge, right? And if two rabbis disagree, like now what? Right?
So someplace in Talmud, it says that the majority rules.
Right.
Somewhere it says that.
When it
But they
doesn't,
do give they always give. Which makes sense. Notice what are we fighting against? Bring up the issue again.
and sometimes the halacha ends up going with the minority in the long run.
Right, right. Or sometimes they'll say, well, they really don't disagree. It's this one's talking about on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and this one's talking on, you know. And sometimes they'll come to a take group.
Yeah, we don't
Like,
know.
We all know.
what the hell? We don't know.
We all
Yeah.
know take,
So,
you take who this and I take who that.
Every morning in the minyan,
yeah,
What's in the minion?
every morning about the conflicts.
Oh,
yeah.
I read it every morning.
That's why you need a Supreme Court. You know, a Supreme.
That's united us all.
Yeah.
Really, all these 5-4 decisions just make things worse.
Even when there's a 9-1 decision.
It gets
You can't
worse.
have a 9-1 decision in the Supreme Court.
That's why they get lifetime.
It's not your strong suit, yeah.
Yeah, my math.
He's not a very good lawyer.
Anyway, it does raise an interesting conundrum because it also addresses the whole issue of who's following. I mean, the rabbis do all this arguing in the Talmud, right? And
Right.
at the end of the day, we are descending from those arguments or following those arguments, and they ended up having some kind of authority. But it does seem that what little historical record there is, they didn't start out that way.
Right.
Lots of people not paying them any attention whatsoever at all. So,
Or there's constant stories of Shimon ben Gamliel. Everybody says, we do it this way, and he does it that way. And then the answer is, well, yeah, but he's kind of a jerk. And that happens, they don't use that word exactly, but you know, he's
Wasn't he
extra
president of
special.
Wasn't he the
Yes.
president of the, what do you call it? The Sanhedrin?
Yeah, well, of the
Whatever it
the
was called.
Kehillah, yeah, of the congregation. He was the exarch. Yeah, appointed by this is all taking place in Persia, right, in Babylonian
Yeah,
Talmud.
yes.
So he's the head of the rabbinic bureaucracy. So his, I would say soldiers are saying one thing, he's doing something else, and say, yeah, well, he's super careful about himself, but we don't follow him. You know, you get that a lot. Anyway, so,
That's like I paid no attention to the Hebrew.
whatever.
It's there. I want to make sure it's working, but I don't pay any attention.
Right. So let's, somebody want to read starting with 4?
When Moses heard this, he fell on his face. Then he spoke to Korah and all his company, saying, come morning, the Lord will make known who is his and who is holy, and will grant him access to himself. He will grant access to the one he has chosen. Do this, you, Korah, and all your band, take fire pans, and tomorrow put fire in them and lay incense on them before the Lord. Then the man whom the Lord chooses, he shall be the Holy One. You have gone too far, sons of Levi.
Okay, so this
But
is,
he's the son of Levi.
Yeah.
this is it's amazing because it's reminiscent of Nadav and Avihu. Right?
Uh-huh.
I mean, take your sensors and your fire, and then what happens to Nadav and Avihu? They're destroyed by fire.
Right.
And the same thing happens here.
And these guys,
The fire pans, the same thing happened with them.
but wait a
They were
minute,
fire.
Korah was destroyed by fire. Okay, so which, you know, that's like, reminds us of Sodom and Gomorrah, or Sodom. They were destroyed by fire. Okay, and the other ones, the Reubenites, are not, Nadav and Avihu, not.
Onan and Aviram.
Right, okay, they're the Reubenites. They want political power. They are destroyed by an earthquake. They're
I thought it was the other way.
going to the ground.
I think it's the other way around, but
I think it's the other way.
That's what it is. The Korach fire and the others are
Korach goes down into this
Yeah,
crevice.
Korach goes down.
If you look, it's,
It doesn't make any difference.
no, they keep it deliberately ambiguous here. I mean, I think that whoever the editor is, it's hard to decipher.
You know why they do that, don't you? Or did that? They wanted us to be arguing about it 3,000 years later.
Well,
No, they may have. This is, I mean, a discussion we need to have.
because I mean, Robert Alter is very good on this. He calls it composite artistry. In other words, it's, it's like a stitching together of different oral traditions. But in the end, there's an editor that puts it all together and it makes sense that it's a general rebellion. There's different people rebelling for different reasons. It's hard to distinguish what their motives are, where it happens, what their motives are. Okay, it's sort of, that's the way they related to it back 3,000 years ago or more.
Yeah.
For us, it's a narrative. We read a novel or we read something, it has a plot, it has a clear structure. This does not. It's almost deliberately
It
ambiguous.
reflects the confusion of the community, right?
Right, yes.
Well, and there would be an argument in terms of, if you will, organic development or editing. Particularly if you've got different strands of tradition, maybe some from the north and some from the south, for example. If you find a way to artfully include both,
Right.
then everybody focuses on what they know, and maybe you have a fighting chance.
I'm going to say something way out of whack here. This confusion that you're talking about, which we have here, it's the same confusion that there was before the world was created. It just got turned into, it just became humanized, that's all.
Tohu bohu.
Yeah, that's the word, I couldn't remember it.
Yeah, right.
Tofu and not tofu. Tofu.
No, that's edible.
Talks about this as though no other countries with rulers, except when they talk about Pharaoh. I'm talking about the Nash part, the Torah. It's like they don't know what's going on in Greece. They don't know what's going on in the other
They
countries.
had all these wars with the kings of the other
But
tribes.
yeah, but
But kings could mean a military leader.
Could have been a judge, yeah. Military leader, whatever.
how to act from these people. They are just individuals, they're called kings, they're heads of countries, but it's like we're on our own track. We're gonna find out for ourselves how to rule.
Greece at this time didn't have a king.
Okay, whichever country. Yeah, Greece is.
It's a little bit after this.
Yeah, Yitro does have some ideas, and they only consult Yitro, well, Yitro authors, and that's because he's become part of the mishpacha.
Right. You have two paradigms. One is Egypt, where you have total order because you have one person that is all powerful. And the other paradigm is before the flood. Okay, you have total chaos and God destroys the world. So the Torah here, we're trying to figure out how to create a community, a nation that has freedom and order.
Right.
That's the goal.
And not slip back into being Egypt.
And that's in a sense, one of the key themes of the Torah, that is a thread throughout.
So what Moses does is he challenges them, right? And says, God will choose. Okay, let's go on to 8, because I think Moses really addresses a crucial issue here.
Moses said further to Korah, hear me, sons of Levi. Is it not enough for you that the God of Israel has set you apart from the community of Israel and given you access to God to perform the duties of the Lord's tabernacle and to minister to the community and serve them? Now that God has advanced you and all your fellow Levites with you, do you seek the priesthood too? Truly, it is against the Lord that you and all your company have banded together. For who is Aaron that you should rail against him?
Which is it, I mean, that whole thing is interesting. That's only talking about Korah and the,
Right, so this is
it's
now.
not talking about the rest of the.
Yeah, so for
Rabble route.
Korah, it's an inter-Levite thing, right? It's the Levites against the priests, against Aaron, against Moses, but they're all Levites. So this sounds like it's an issue within the tribe of Levi. Why do you, Moses, get to say you're the leader of the Levites? We're all holy community, meaning all Levites.
Right, but you got the Reubenites here too.
No, that's in the next.
That's the next paragraph.
But Reubenites aren't a holy tribe, or are they?
Well, they were the
No.
firstborn.
That's different.
They're not,
Well, that's
They're
what
not
that's what they
Levite.
were.
so different.
The Levites are different.
Right.
So when Korah says, aren't we all a holy community, is he talking about Israel or is he talking about Levites?
I think he's talking about the rebellion. Says you,
The whole group?
yeah, the whole group.
Okay.
He could
Well, you know,
be.
what he says is not for you. I'm thinking it's you, the rebellion goes.
Well, so Korah could be saying all of Israel is holy. But then, see, that levels out the Levites to everybody else. We're 12 tribes or whatever. We're actually 14 tribes, so we won't go into that. But all of those tribes are equal. Or is he saying the Levites are a holy tribe, but you are not a more holy Levite than I am? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it, yeah, but I'm just looking at a different perspective, that's all.
Okay, no, that's fine.
I like the piece of text where it says, God of the spirits of all flesh, he who made all hearts can be trusted to distinguish between the guilty and those misled by the guilty. And I think we're dealing with that too, and we're living it right now too.
Oh, yeah, this can sound very contemporary. Yeah,
To take your point, though, Moses certainly seems to view it the way you're describing, because what he tells them is wrong is that you have your duties. You have your, you already know what you're supposed to do with respect to the tabernacle. You know, some of you are carrying this and some of you are carrying that and some of you are arranging this and some of you are arranging that and he specifically says at the end of it, you're railing against Aaron. He's the high priest. It's not, I didn't make him that. God made him
and he's
that.
one of us. You
What's
know,
with
we're a
you?
privileged tribe. We don't have to be farmers. We don't have to raise goats and sheep. You know, we get all this time.
Which Korah already has the status of a Levite. You just said, it's absolutely right.
I totally agree. He's fighting against other Levites, Moses, Aaron, you know.
Is he,
Be the Kohen.
And then Reuben is, of course, fighting against the Levites.
I don't think they don't, it's not about the religious power for them. They want Moses's power.
Well,
Political.
the Reubenites chose to be separated and not cross the river.
that hasn't
So-
happened yet.
No, but I think she's saying they have this, you know, we're Reuben, you know, we're Texas, you know.
Right.
Yeah, feels like that, doesn't it?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Jackie?
No, it's just that the Reubenites chose to separate themselves from the larger group. And their participation is by requirement. And they said, oh, we'll be there for you if you need us. But meanwhile, we've got some good fields and things are good for us over here.
Yeah, yeah.
It's 38 years later.
Yeah, but nonetheless, I think the point Jackie's making is that the tribe of Reuben has this sense of self-importance. Would that be? We're just not one of, we're not one of the tribe number 7 or 8, we're number 1.
Didn't they also, part of the ones who avenged Dina?
Yes,
So they took that
Levi
initiative.
was,
No, that was Levi and.
that was Levi.
wasn't it? Shimon.
Shimon and Levi.
I think.
Oh,
Right.
not Reuben.
Reuben.
No, not Reuben. Shimon and Levi.
Even then, they didn't take leadership.
All right. So,
Number 2 and number 3.
for who is Aaron that you should rail against him, right? Aaron is one of you, right? You should be happy that your tribe has got the priesthood. What are you fetching
You know,
about?
I kind of wonder about Aaron being the high priest myself, because I mean, the only qualification he had was he was Moses's older brother,
Right,
period.
period.
Oh,
And-
whereas
and-
Moses
and
couldn't.
Moshe hadn't complained about not being able to talk. Aaron wouldn't even have been in the picture.
Right.
But Aaron is considered like another tribe.
Right, it really is, the Kohanim become a sort of, yeah.
And even if-
Though Moses didn't want competition, other tribe.
It could also be part of what Korach is saying is you guys have kept it in the family.
Right.
I mean, in the the
He could be
family.
saying that, and yet, who was speaking to Pharaoh? Who is offering all these sacrifices? I mean, you could say, well, he got to his position because he's Moses's brother. But it's not that he didn't do anything with the position once he got there.
Right,
I think what I was trying to say is it could have been anybody. Didn't have to be Moses's older brother.
It wasn't.
It was.
Keep inside the same family if possible, even if the family is, say, the party. I mean, God forbid someone should choose someone from outside the party, who's not a Democrat or Republican, just to get a fresh idea. We like people who are like us.
and he's keeping it in the family, and this is very Middle Eastern politics, right? It stays within the family, the Hamula, the clan,
Yeah.
Um,
Even if it's bad. We're loath to-
right,
Now, one of the problems, and maybe this is the problem here for Korach, is nobody listens to anybody anyway. Plenty of people want to look at whatever label you happen to wear at any given time, but if you open your mouth to say something, even respectfully, they either shout you down or don't listen, unless you're saying exactly what they already thought they wanted to hear to begin with.
Well, here it says, Korach was consumed by jealousy of his kinsman Moses. He has passed me by in the appointment of all the high offices.
let's go on to verse 12, because now he's finished talking to the Levites, now he's gonna be talking to the seculars, right? So we want to read 12?
Moses sent Datan and Aviram, sons of Eliab, but they said, we will not come. Is it not enough that you brought us from a land flowing with milk and honey to have us die in the wilderness? That you would also lord it over us?
So they're now calling Egypt the land of milk and honey, I think that,
Right, I mean, this is like outrageous.
this is like really, this is political rhetoric, right?
Even if you had brought us to a land flowing with milk and honey and given us possession of fields and vineyards, should you gouge out those men's eyes? We will not come. Moses was much aggrieved, and he said to the Lord, pay no regard to their oblation. I have not taken the ass of any one of them, nor have I wronged any one of them.
Okay,
Moses have to tell God that.
He was defending himself.
Isn't God supposed to have
Yeah,
seen?
but he felt he needed to say something.
No, but that's a good question. So Moses doesn't turn back to them and say, look, guys, I've been a good leader. I've gotten you this far. I'm taking you to a good place, right? He doesn't address them. He turns to God and says, God, never mind.
They were a mob.
Kind of he lets them to quench, right?
Maybe.
Complain.
I have a problem with the translation. Hamor is not us.
Donkey?
Yeah.
It's a
Okay.
donkey.
I think it's an older word for donkey, but
But you know, here again, there's a conflation of these two groups here in these next verses. You know, you can't tell if it's Korah and the Levites or whether it's the Reubenites, Datam and Aviram. It's like they make it appear, and I think deliberately, that it's all one group, but it's really two separate
groups. Yeah, yeah.
and they're destroyed in different ways.
But together they constitute a mob. And you can't address a mob.
I can imagine, and I don't know, I mean, that it's the Reubenites are rebelling, and Korah says, hey, look, we'll join you guys if you appoint me high priest when you take power, because I'm a Levite, you know. And then they co-conspire.
Mhm. Could be.
And it could be a conflation because we've got two different rebellions and they're sewn together. I don't know.
They make a good movie.
I find that the word Hamor very interesting. There is another place that it was mentioned. That's when Abraham was taking his son
Uh-huh.
for the Akedah. There was the son, there was the Hamor, and there was like a helper, like
Uh-huh.
a Ishmaelite or Arab of those days.
Yeah.
And Abraham told to the boy, to the Nar, you stay here with the Hamor and I'll go up, sacrifice my son.
Yeah.
And people have all kinds of ways of interpreting it. Why did he call the boy, you and Hamor, you stay here?
Right.
Politically incorrect to say it, but maybe you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Right. We just have a few minutes left. I wanted to come back to why are you gouging these people's eyes? What's he referring to here? Right, so even if you had brought us to a land flowing with milk and honey, and you haven't done that yet, and given us possession of fields and vineyards, should you gouge out these men's eyes?
Pulling the wool over their eyes.
Rock.
Right, so who's pulling what wool over whose eyes?
I always thought just not rubbing it in. You're demanding we come to you. You're rubbing it in that you're in charge.
You being Korah,
Moses.
Moses.
And a similar story in the Talmud about the rabbis to each other. Where the priest, the high priest, demands the other priest, or other rabbi come to him and follow his rules for Yom Kippur.
Oh, that story. But he acquiesced.
He made peace.
So here it's Datan and Aviram who are saying to Moses, you are deceiving people, right?
They are feeling like Moses is demanding a blind follow up
Ah,
because he comes from God and you have to blindly believe in God.
right. So their complaint is you're pulling the wool over everyone's eyes by claiming you're following God. But you haven't brought us, you said, land of milk and honey. Well, none of us are going to live to see that. They know that by this point. So who are you to keep saying all this stuff? Maybe
Well, yeah.
God's favor has been withdrawn from you and it should fall back into the tribe of Levi. And
Well,
here's
one
Korah
of the things-
volunteering, you know?
One of the things they don't know is because God speaks to Moses privately. They don't really know what he said. They
Right.
don't know that Moses isn't making this stuff up.
But he goes into the tent, then he comes out and says, oh, now we're gonna do it this way.
So they don't know where it's really coming
They
from.
all originally said you
We
do that
can't hear it.
because
It's too hard. We can't hear it.
Too
Yeah.
much.
So they asked to not hear it.
Look at verse 15.
15?
Yeah, it says, Moses was much aggrieved and he said to the Lord, he says to the Lord, pay no regard to their oblation. Okay, I have not taken, he's telling the Lord, God, to not to accept their sacrifice,
I mean, that's chutzpah.
I mean, that's the first time he's ever done that.
I'm actually wondering if he wasn't just mumbling to himself. He had to say something to somebody.
And he's losing his cool completely, Moses.
So Moses might be saying, so what you're saying, Moses might be saying, "Ah, I just can't stand their stuff. I hope God doesn't accept their offerings. I mean, what have I done? I haven't taken some more. I haven't done nothing.
I get the whole thing of anger. You don't lose it.
Right.
It's a good thing he really didn't pay attention to his wife and children. I don't know how they would have stood.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think,
There isn't, but it's almost. Does Moses ever have a pleasant word? It doesn't, he doesn't have a pleasant word, but he's so burdened.
Well, this is,
Trying to get a message.
right, and this is all part of the reason that he doesn't make it to the promised land.
he got Yeah.
He's done.
He's worn out.
he's worn out, yeah.
By the way, I mean,
We're one out
No.
reading it.
Right. He had to.
but everybody forgets because we don't actually stop for 38 years.